Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Alicia. Welcome to the family. Today we're going to be talking about the International Booker Longlist that just recently came out. Personally, the International Booker Prize is one of my favorite prizes to follow, primarily because I get to discover wonderful new authors and pieces of works that were unknown or unfamiliar to me. So today I'm going to bring you along while I look at the 13 books that made it onto the longlist this year, and you get to see my reactions. We're going to talk a little bit about which ones I'm excited about. Usually I try to read most of the books on the long list and on the short list. This year I don't think I'll be able to read many of the books on the long list just because the short list will be announced very soon. So my plan will be to go ahead and pick 3 or 4 books that interest me from the long list after reading the synopses and going through them, and try to read them before the short list is announced. If they're on there, that's great. If not, then that's fine because I plan on reading all of the books on the short list once that is announced. So without any further ado, let's get right into the video. If you do see me looking down, it's because I do have my laptop here and we're going to be looking up some information. So for those of you who are unfamiliar with the International Booker Prize, this is a prize that is awarded every single year to a book that is translated into English that was published in either the UK or Ireland. And this year we do have 13 novels that were selected for the long list. So we're just going to go through all 13 and see which ones stand out to me the most. So before we begin, I wanted to go over the dates really quickly. So the long list was announced today on March 30th of 2021. I don't know if this video is going up today or tomorrow, but it was announced on the 30th. The shortlist will be announced on April 22nd of 2021, so in less than a month from now, and then the winner will be announced June 2nd of 2021. So with that, let's go ahead and get into the books. The first book on this list is called I Live in the Slums by San Zui, and this is translated from Chinese by Karen Gurmand and Chen Zepping, and this was also published by Yale University Press. So from what I can gather, this is a collection of short stories, which I love. I love whenever short stories are on here because that allows people who aren't avid readers to go ahead and pick up a piece of work that they would have most likely not picked up or that is not hyped up. But if they're not big readers, it allows them to read short stories here and there without them feeling overwhelmed. And with this, they might find a brand new favorite work or new author and slowly get more into reading. So I love short story collection. I do want to make a point of reading more of them. So this is excellent. So I'm just going to briefly read over the synopsis for this. It says, I Live in the Slums combines elements of both Chinese materiality, the love of physical things, and Western abstract thinking, inviting readers to an immersive landscape that blends the empirical fact and illusion, mixes the physical and spiritual, and probes the space between consciousness and unconsciousness. The stories bring readers to a place that is both readily familiar yet unmappable, highlighting the inherent unreliability in our relationship to the world around us. Delightful, enchanting, and full of mystery and secret, San Zui's newest collection shines a light on forces that give contours to the visible terrain we acknowledge as reality. Already sounds super intriguing to me. This is one that I will definitely need to pick up. The next book on this list is At Night, All Blood is Black by David Diop. This is translated from French by Anna Muschaskovitz and published by Punchkin Press. And I believe this one is a historical fiction. At Night, All Blood is Black captures the tragedy of a young man's hunting towards madness and tells the little heard story of the Senegalese who fought for France on the Western Front during the First World War. So yes, historical fiction. Alpha Nayari and Mademba Diop are 2 of the many Senegalese tirailleurs fighting in the Great War under the French flag. Whenever Captain Armand blows his whistle, they climb out of their trenches to attack the blue-eyed enemy. But one day, Mademba is mortally wounded, and without his friend, his more-than-brother Alpha is alone amidst the savagery of the trenches, far from all he knows and holds dear. He throws himself into combat with renewed vigor, but soon begins to scare even his own comrades in arms. From what I can tell, this is going to have elements of horror, maybe a little bit of magical realism thrown in there. One that I definitely want to pick up. First of all, I love books set during any world war. I don't know why, I just really like them. But also, I really enjoy books that have elements from other genres, so this is one that I will definitely keep my eye out for. The next book on the list is called The Pear Field by Nana Ektimishvili, and it's translated from Georgian by Elizabeth Highway. This was published by Perian Press. I didn't know Georgian was a language. Super interesting. I will have to look more into that after this video. This is going to be literary fiction. It says, her history teacher teacher must die, and she must start a new life beyond the Pear Field. On the outskirts of Shibli, in a newly independent Georgia, is a residential school for intellectually disabled children, or as the locals call it, the school for idiots. Abandoned by their parent, the pupils here receive lessons in violence and in neglect. At 18, Leela, old enough to leave, but with nowhere to go, stays and plans both for her own escape and for the future she hopes to give Erickley, a young boy at school. When a couple from the US, I'm so sorry about my dogs and the barking. When a couple from the US decides to adopt a child, Leela is determined to do everything she can to help Iraqi make the most of this chance. This seems like it's going to be one that explores relationships and what it means to belong and just surviving in the face of adversity. Sounds super interesting and sounds like it's going to be very impactful. The next book on this list is called The Dangers of Smoking in Bed by Mariana Enriquez, which is translated from Spanish by Megan McDowell and is published by Granta Books. And this is the one that I'm most excited for. I still, to this day, have not read anything by Mariana Enriquez, but she did publish an earlier collection of short stories about, I think it's called The Things We Lost in the Fire, which I still haven't gotten my hands on, but I need to read desperately. I'm really excited that she's on this list, and I will definitely be reading this collection of short stories. So what it says is, written against the backdrop of contemporary Argentina, The Dangers of Smoking in Bed is populated by unruly teenagers, crooked witches, homeless ghosts, and hungry women. The stories walk the uneasy line between urban realism and horror, but with a resounding tenderness toward those in pain and fear and in limbo. As terrifying as they are socially conscious, the stories press into the unspoken, fetish, illness, the female body, the darkness of human history, with bracing urgency. This just sounds like everything that I want and more. It's, again, in short story format, and I love books that combine different elements of different genres and that also make any socio-political commentary. I need to get my hands on this one. Yes, I will be reading it. The next book on this list is When We Cease to Understand the World by Benjamin Labatut, translated from Spanish by Adrian Nathan West and published by Pushkin Press. Looks like this already won the English Pen Award. I'm not entirely sure what that award is. Please let me know down in the comments if you do know. But it says, using extraordinary, epic, defining moments from history of science, when we cease to understand the world exists in the territory between fact and fiction, destruction and genius and madness. Albert Einstein opens a letter sent to him from the Eastern Front during the First World War. Inside, he finds the first exact solution to the questions of general relativity, unaware that it contains a monster that could destroy his life's work. The great mathematician Alexander Grothendieck tunnels so deeply into abstraction that he tries to cut all ties in the world, terrified of the horror his discoveries might cause. Erwin Schrödinger's and Werner Heisenberg's battle over the soul of physics after creating two equivalent yet opposed versions of quantum mechanics. Their fight will tear the fabric of reality, revealing a world stranger than they could ever have imagined. This one just sounds super interesting. We have all of these, famous and important people, but it sounds like it's going to have fantasy elements thrown in here. I'm very intrigued by this one. Sounds super nice. The next book on this list is called The Perfect Nine, The Epic, Gikuyu, and Mumbi, and this is by Nugi Wa Tiong. It's translated from Gikuyu by that same author, and it's published by Vintage. Oh, this one sounds okay. This is another one that I will keep my eyes out for. I already see some things that I will really like about it. It says, blending folklore, mythology, and allegory, The Perfect Nine chronicles the adventures of Gikuyu and Mumbi and how their brave daughters became the matriarchs of the Gikuyu clans. Gikuyu and Mumbi settled on the peaceful and bounteous foot of Mount Kenya after fleeing war and hunger. When 99 suitors arrive on their land seeking to marry their famously beautiful daughters called the Perfect Nine, the parents ask their daughters to choose for themselves, but to choose wisely. So, I already love it. First, the young women must embark on a treacherous quest with the suitors to find a magical cure for their younger sister, Waregia, who cannot walk. As they journey up the mountain, the number of suitors diminishes, and the sisters put their sharp minds and bold hearts to the test, conquering fear, doubt, hunger, and many menacing ogres as they attempt to return home. This already sounds like perfection to me. There's a quest, there's suitors fighting for these women, and it sounds like they're going to be very strong, independent, badass women. Yes, I'm here for it. And blending of mythology and folk is always a plus for me. The next book on this list is called The Employees by Olga Ravin, translated from Danish by Martin Altiken, and this was published by Lowly Edition. And The Employees, from what it seems, is structured as a series of witness statements compiled by a workplace commission. The employees follow the crew of 6,000 ships, which consists of those who were born and those who were made, those who will die and those who will not. When the ship takes on a number of strange objects from the planet New Discovery, and the crew is perplexed to find itself becoming deeply attached to them, and human and humanoid employees alike start aching for the same thing. belonging, warmth, and intimacy. The employees probes what it means to be human, emotionally and ontologically, while simultaneously delivering an overdue critique of a life governed by work and the logic of productivity. Just all of the books on this list seem fantastic, and I definitely feel like I want to read all of them already. There's not one in here that I've been like, maybe not for me. The next book on this list is called Summer Brother by Job Robin, and this is translated from Dutch by David Doherty, and it's published by World Editions. This one's also literary fiction, I believe, and this one says, 13-year-old Brian lives in a trailer on a forgotten patch of land with his divorced and uncaring father. His older brother Lucian, physically and mentally disabled, has been institutionalized for years, while Lucian's home is undergoing renovation. He is sent to live with his father and younger brother for the summer. Their detached father leaves Brian to care for Lucian's special needs, but how do you look after someone when you don't know what they need? How do you make the right choices when you still have so much to discover? This seems like a book that is going to touch a lot on ableism and what it means to care for someone else, especially when you're still learning and trying to care for yourself. Sounds like it's going to be a hard-hitting coming-of-age story, definitely one that sounds like will be super impactful, so I'm very intrigued. The next book on this list is called An Inventory of Losses by Judith Schalansky, which is translated from German by Jackie Smith, and this is published by Macklin His Press. So, an inventory of losses says each of the pieces within an inventory of losses follows the conventions of a different genre, considering something that is irretrievably lost to the world, including the Paradiesal Pacific island of Tuanaki, the Caspian tiger, the Villa Sicily in Rome, Szabo's love poems, Greta's Gardo's Fading Beauty, and a painting by Caspar David Friedrich in the former East Germany's Palace of the Republic. So, I'm not exactly sure what this is going to be about. It says each of the pieces. Does that mean that it's written in a mixed media form? Have you read this? Anyone out there, if you've read An Inventory of Losses, let me know. Is this in mixed media format? Super interesting. That's all that it says on here. So the next book on this list is called Minor Detail by Adania Shibli, which is translated from Arabic by Elizabeth Jacquet, and this is printed by Fitzcarraldo Editions. This one says, Minor Detail revolves around a brutal crime committed during the War of 1948. Israeli soldiers rape a young Palestinian woman they find in the Negev desert, killing her and burying her in the sand. Many years later, in the near present day, a young woman in Ramallah embarks on a journey of discovery into the events surrounding that rape and murder. She becomes fascinated by it to the point of obsession when she reads about it by chance, not only because of its gruesome nature, but also because it happened to take place 25 years to the day before she was born. Two sections of the book hover over one. So this one sounds like it's also going to be a very impactful read, but it's also a very timely read with everything going on between Palestine and Israel. So one that I definitely want to check out and pick up. And in general, I just need to be better about picking up Arabic literature. So one that I will definitely need to read. The next book on this list is called In Memory of Memory. And this is by Maria Stepanova, and it's translated from Russia by Sasha Duggill and also published by Fitzcarraldo Editions. And this one says, In Memory of Memory tells the story of how a seemingly ordinary Jewish family managed to survive the myriad persecutions and repressions of the last century. Following the death of her aunt, Maria Stepanova builds the story out of faded photographs, old postcards, letters, diaries, and heaps of souvenirs left behind, a withered repository of a century life in Russia. Sounds so good. I'm telling you, all of these just sound so good, and I just want to pick them all up and read them all. The next book is called Wretchedness by Andrzej Tichy, translated from Swedish by Nicola Smalley, and it's published by And Other Stories. That's what it says. Wretchedness. It says, from sprawling housing objects to underground clubs and squat parties, Wretchedness is a blistering trip through the underbelly of Europe's cities. Powered by a furious, unpredictable beat, this is a paean to brotherhood, to those who didn't make it however hard they fought, and a visceral indictment of the poverty which took them. I think I remember reading a little bit more on this one earlier. The synopsis doesn't give us much, but this is one that feels like will have a lot of social commentary as well as a heavy plot. So definitely one to keep my eye out for. And then the last one is called The War of the Poor by Eric Vollard, translated from French by Marc Polisodi, and this was published by Pan Macmillan. So The War of the Poor. This says, the history of inequality is a long and terrible one, and it's not over yet. Short, sharp, and devastating, The War of the Poor tells the story of a brutal episode from history, not as well known from tales of other popular uprisings, but one that deserves to be told. The Protestant Reformation of the 16th century takes on the powerful and the privileged, but quickly it becomes more about the bourgeois. Peasants, the poor living in towns who are still being promised the equality will be granted to them in heaven, begin to ask themselves, why not equality now? Sifting through history, Alec Foulard extracts the story of one whose terrible and novelesque life cast light on the times in which he lived, a moment when Europe was in flux. Inspired by the recent Gilets jaunes protest in France, a populist grassroots protest movement led by workers for economic justice. While the War of the Poor is about 16th century Europe, this short polemic has a lot to say about inequality now. Another one that will touch on a lot of social and economic aspects. I love when they talk about history and they compare it to current times and what we learned, what we didn't learn, and how it informs on the future. One that also sounds super intriguing to me, and I think one that I will be picking up. So those were the 13 novels that were selected for the long list for the International Booker Prize. Let me know down below if you're going to try to read them all before the shortlist comes out. What are your predictions? Have you read any of them? What do you recommend that I pick up? There's definitely quite a few of them that I'm really interested in reading, but I need your help to decide which of those. So thank you so much for watching. If you're new here, don't forget to like and subscribe. It really means a lot to me, and it would really help my channel if you do. Thank you for watching, and I will see you on the next one. Bye!